I will teach 3 yoga therapy techniques to reduce the stress of type 1 diabetes. Welcome to my channel. My name is Evan. Here I'm going to show some of my favorite and simple yoga therapy techniques to reduce the stress of living with type 1 diabetes and to live a life free of limitations. Practicing yoga for my diabetes helped me rise above the highs and lows and the ups and downs to navigate diabetes more gracefully. Type 1 diabetes is stressful. It can feel at times like there are 10,000 things a person's dealing with and navigating at once. And without adequate strategies to help a person relax, that can become overwhelming and detrimental to a person's health. But yoga is a wonderful tool and strategy that a person can begin to implement in their life that's going to transform stress, the inevitability of diabetes stress, into strength and eventually into resilience. It's for everyone. It doesn't matter your experience, flexibility, or physical fitness. Yoga is not limited to physical postures. Although in the Western world, they like you to think that yoga is just about putting your body into all these crazy, weird shapes. And there can be a benefit to some of that. But really, what is incorporated into a complete yoga practice includes postures, as well as breathing exercises, meditation, visualization. My personal favorite, Yoga Nidra, which is a guided relaxation process that one can walk themselves through, where essentially they're putting their body and their mind to sleep, and it creates a lot of restoration and energy. I'd love to apply this for myself, especially if I'm feeling really tired or overwhelmed and anxious, which happens these days. Even journaling and asking oneself important questions about their diabetes management or the way a person's thinking or feeling in relationship to diabetes and the rest of their life is considered to be a yoga practice. And what makes this yoga therapy is application of yoga practices, philosophy, for this specific condition, any condition, but in this case we're talking about type 1 diabetes. As a person who has type 1 diabetes, like me, and a person who works with others who have type 1 diabetes, I know how essential it is to have tools and strategies to reduce the stress and to help oneself feel better in real time. To know that you can feel better by taking the time to breathe, to feel your body, to reflect, to notice sensations. It's incredibly helpful and useful and really empowering. So leave your comments below. I'd love to know about your experiences if you've practiced yoga therapy before or yoga therapy for diabetes. The first tip I'm going to walk through is something called Ujjayi Pranayama. It's the most simple yogic breathing technique. It means victorious breath, and it's a wonderful way of helping to regulate your nervous system, and also it gives your mind something to focus on. This breathing practice can be done seated. It can be done when you're practicing the different yoga postures. Actually, one should constantly be practicing this type of breathing when they're doing yoga postures to help support the structure of their body as well. But the way that I'm going to teach it to you, I find very effective. Often we're told to breathe with our mouth closed, but what ends up happening is a person starts to do this. Just watch this. It's kind of not comfortable. So they're focusing on the nose, and it creates this almost hyperventilation-like thing. So ujjayi actually is this valving that we create in the throat. So the way I teach it is by opening the mouth, and like you're doing a foggy sigh, you're just going to exhale out your mouth. Go ahead, do it with me. And now do the same thing with the mouth open on the inhale. And notice what happens in your torso. Feel that there's an expansion. Now exhale out the mouth and squeeze your belly. Now close your mouth and create that same sound as you breathe in through your nose. Feel that it's much longer, more deep, it's less strain, and this is essential when working with stress reduction, is learning how to breathe in a way without tension, without straining, to help smooth your breath out, is going to calm your nervous system and give your mind something to focus on. So by just doing this with about 5 counts in, 5 counts out, is the minimum needed to influence a direction of change in your nervous system to help promote self-regulation, homeostasis, balance. So go ahead, press pause on this video and try it out for a few minutes. I'd love for you to leave a comment below. Let me know if there were any shifts that you felt in your body. The second technique is bringing dynamic movement into the breath. So it can be really, really simple. But breathing with the ujjayi and then adding some movements with the body that help to connect with the breath. So the simple one is even just bringing the hands to the heart and then inhaling, opening your arms, moving your chest forward, and exhaling, bringing the hands back to the heart and doing something dynamic with the arms. I mean, another one could be lifting the arms overhead on the inhale, lowering the arms on the exhale. The important thing is that the breath and the movement are equal distant. So what ends up happening often when a person's first starting to do this is that they'll run out of air at the end of the movement. So let's say you're lifting your arms overhead, like somewhere 3/4 of the way, you lost your breath completely. Or another thing is a person starts to breathe well before they move, or they start to move well before they've started breathing. And what this dysregulation does is it creates more tension. So by linking your breath with the movement, it's helping, again, support our body's natural process of restoring balance to our systems. Go ahead and give it a try and notice that simple is definitely not easy. And I'd love for you to leave your comments below. Let me know about how that felt on your body. Like seriously, just a few minutes of lifting your arms on the inhale, lowering them, or forward bending on exhale, standing up on inhale, does a world of difference. The third technique is humming on the breath. This is called Brahmari, or the bumblebee breath in yoga. I find that practicing this, it has a unique effect that it's a little bit deeper than Ujjayi onto itself. And it's a really great strategy to employ. Let's say, for instance, a person's having a hard time exhaling, which is not that uncommon at all, that bringing some sound into the breath helps to elicit that relaxation response, because also the vibration that's created around the tongue has a direct link to your vagus nerve, which acts basically like the conductor of the part of your nervous system that helps you relax. The way that you practice humming on the breath is literally just the way it sounds. It's like this. Try it out. Inhale slowly. Now let the sound be really slow. Notice any shifts, just one thing. Another thing you can add is to take the tip of your tongue and just gently rest it on the roof of your mouth. Let's try it again. Tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth. Just a couple of those. Personally, I feel a little bit more tingly in the body, a sense of calm overcoming me. Imagine doing that for 5 minutes straight. It's important to make sure that you're making a loud vibration. If it's soft, it's not nearly going to have the same quality of effect. So make sure that when you're practicing it, bring up the tone, bring up the pitch. Try it out. Leave your comments below. Tell me about the humming on the breath, how that feels in your body. Some common mistakes that people with type 1 diabetes make when practicing yoga is not practicing for the needs of the day. So let's say, for instance, you are having a really high blood sugar. The common misconception is that more exercise would be better because that's going to bring your blood sugars down, when in fact, a person would probably benefit more from a deeply relaxing practice than something that's going to be more taxing for the nervous system. Another mistake people often make, and this is with type 1 diabetes, but it's also for everyone, but it's even more important with type 1 diabetes, is over breathing when they're practicing yoga postures, for instance, especially if they're doing a flow where they're linking different postures together. So when things get hard, the tendency is to forget about your breathing or hold your breath. So going back to those techniques we went through of Ujjayi, so long and slow, slightly audible breath in the throat, and then connecting the breath with the movement. If someone's moving faster than their breath will allow, this is going to have more of a stress increasing response rather than a stress reducing response. Lastly, one of the most common mistakes is just limiting your practice to a physical practice. Whereas a lot of us start that way, and that's completely fine. There is so much more to yoga than just moving your body. And the more a person can get in tune with their breathing practice, with relaxation practices, with meditation, these are the types of practices that are going to be super beneficial for reducing stress and increasing self-awareness. Let me know if you've made any of these mistakes before. I personally have, and that's why I'm here to tell you about them. The three techniques are Ujjayi Pranayama. That's a long, slow, smooth, audible breath that's done with the mouth closed. Technically, you could breathe on the exhale with the mouth open if a person's struggling to exhale, because often when that happens, the inhale becomes tight or disrupted, which can create more stress. So if you're noticing that it's hard for you to exhale, that you're observing tension on the inhale, you could exhale, but keep the mouth closed when the inhale happens. Let it be slow and smooth. The second tip is to connect breath with movement. So let's say this is the length of your movement, this is the length of your breath. They are equal. And this is most important in dynamic practices, but let's say, for instance, holding a posture for a long period of time, even though there's not a lot of movement, the breath ideally remains smooth and even the whole time. And the final strategy is humming on the breath, or Brahmari. A person can hum instead of exhaling. In fact, it's a much easier way to exhale, and exhale is the way that we have the greatest command or control over the predominance of our nervous system. So if we're living with a lot of stress in our life, focusing on the exhalation is essential, and humming is a wonderful way to begin to exhale more, create an easier way of breathing. So slowly. Person could practice that seated, they could practice it moving in and out of different postures. In fact, there's times where I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I'll do it when I'm driving. It promotes a lot of self-awareness, like it puts you in the moment too. If you'd like to hear more about these techniques, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. There are a lot of common objections to why a person can't practice yoga if they have diabetes. Common one is, well, my blood sugar is going to get low, or I don't have the experience for it, I don't have time for it, I'm not flexible, it's uncomfortable to wear my insulin pump. All of these things get in the way from a person practicing. You know, yoga doesn't have to be fancy, complicated. You don't have to go to a gym. You don't have to go to a yoga studio. Yoga, you don't need a lot of time for. 5 minutes of breathing daily often is the minimum requirement that actually gets a lot of benefit from taking time. I've been practicing yoga for nearly 20 years, so it's hard for me to compare what my life was like 20 years ago, but I do remember how stressful it was, how disembodied and overwhelmed I felt with diabetes, how drained my energy was, especially with highs and lows. Oftentimes I felt like I didn't have the energy to do the things that were most meaningful. And I was in school at the time, and my brain didn't function the same. Now, even if I do have those stressful moments, because again, diabetes is stressful and stressful moments happen, I have tools to support me wherever I'm at in my life with and beyond diabetes. As a health providing tool, it's about giving you the power to change the way that you feel, to increase health. And in fact, anything can be a yoga practice if a person is bringing focus, intention, curiosity to what they are doing. If a person doesn't have a lot of time, again, weave small practices in throughout your day. Try out all 3 of those practices for 5 minutes at different times and notice any differences. Practicing yoga for my diabetes helped me rise above the highs and lows and the ups and downs to navigate diabetes more gracefully. I'd love to know what your hesitations are for practicing yoga with type 1 diabetes. Have you ever experimented with yoga therapy for type 1 diabetes? Love to hear from you. Taking time for myself to regularly breathe into my body, to feel, to sense what's going on, even if I'm not feeling well, to know that 5 minutes of breathing can help me feel better. It empowers me, especially when I feel like diabetes is winning. And those instances have become much less and less over the years, but they still happen sometimes. Yoga helps me celebrate my body, to recognize what's working, like my lungs breathing, how wonderful it feels to be in my body and the things that are working, and to celebrate that. You know, our life is the greatest gift that we have. And self-care practices like the ones outlined in yoga are wonderful strategies for people living with type 1 diabetes and all humans. If you like this content, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Your actions are going to help me spread this information to more and more people with type 1 diabetes. I'm at your service. Namaste.